to Public Domain Dad, where I read a story from the public domain like I read to my kids. Today we'll be continuing the story, The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle, starting with Part 2, the first chapter, The Crew of the Curlew. From that time on, of course, my position in the town was very different. I was no longer a poor cobbler's son. I carried my nose in the air as I went down the high street with Jip and his gold collar by my side, and snobbish little boys who had despised me before I was not rich enough to go to school now pointed me out to their friends and whispered, "You see him? He's a doctor's assistant, and only 10 years old." But their eyes would have opened still wider with wonder if they had but known that I and the dog that was with me could talk to one another. 2 days after the doctor had been to our house for dinner, he told me very sadly that he was afraid that he would have to give up trying to learn the language of the shellfish, at all events for the present. "I'm very discouraged, Stubbins, very. I've tried the mussels and the clams, the oysters and the whelks, cockles and scallops, 7 different kinds of crab, and all the lobster family. I think I'll leave it for the present and go at it again later on." "What will you turn to now?" I asked. "Well, I'd rather thought of going on a voyage, Stubbins. It's quite a time now since I've been away, and there's a great deal of work waiting for me abroad." "When shall we start?" I asked. "Well, first I shall have to wait till the Purple Bird of Paradise gets here. I must see if she has any message for me from Long Arrow. She's late. She should have been here 10 days ago. I hope to goodness she's all right." "Well, hadn't we better be seeing about getting a boat?" I said. "She's sure to be here in a day or so, and there will be lots of things to do to get ready in the meantime, won't there?" "Yes, indeed," said the doctor. "Suppose we go down to see your friend Joe, the mussel man. He will know about boats." "I'd like to come too," said Jip. "All right, come along," said the doctor, and off we went. Joe said yes, he had a boat, one he had just bought, but it needed 3 people to sail her. We told him that we would like to see it anyway. So the mussel man took us off the little way down the river and showed us the neatest, prettiest little vessel that was ever built. She was called the Curlew. Joe said he would sell her to us cheap, but the trouble was that the boat needed 3 people, while we were only 2. "Of course I should be taking Chi-Chi," said the doctor. "Although he's very quick and clever, he's not as strong as a man. We really ought to have another person to sail a boat as big as that." "I know of a good sailor, Doctor," said Joe. "A first-class seaman who would be glad of the job." "No, thank you, Joe," said Dr. Dolittle. "I don't want any seamen. I couldn't afford to hire them. And then they hamper me so, seamen do, when I'm at sea. They're always wanting to do things the proper way, and I like to do them my way. Now let me see. Who could we take with us?" "There's Matthew Mugg, the cat's meat man," I said. "No, he wouldn't do. Matthew's a very nice fellow, but he talks too much, mostly about his rheumatism. You have to be frightfully particular whom you take with you on long voyages." "How about Luke the Hermit?" I asked. "That's a good idea. Splendid, if he'll come. Let's go and ask him right away." The second chapter, Luke the Hermit. The Hermit was an old friend of ours, as I have already told you. He was a very peculiar person. Far out on the marshes, he lived in a little bit of a shack, all alone except for his brindle bulldog. No one knew where he came from, not even his name. Just Luke the Hermit, folks called him. He never came into the town, never seemed to want to see or talk to people. His dog, Bob, drove them away if they came near his hut. When you asked anyone in Puddleby who he was or why he lived out in that lonely place by himself, the only answer you got was, "Oh, Luke the Hermit? Well, there's some mystery about him. Nobody knows what it is, but there's a mystery. Don't go near him. He'll set the dog on you." Nevertheless, there were 2 people who often went out to that little shack on the fens, the doctor and myself. And Bob, the bulldog, never barked when he heard us coming, for we liked Luke, and Luke liked us. This afternoon, crossing the marshes, we faced a cold wind blowing from the east. As we approached the hut, Jip put up his ears and said, "That's funny." "What's funny?" asked the doctor. "That Bob hasn't come out to meet us. He should have heard us long ago, or smelt us. What's that queer noise?" "It sounds to me like a gate creaking," said the doctor. Maybe it's Luke's door, only we can't see the door from here. It's on the far side of the shack." "Well, I hope Bob isn't sick," said Jip, and he let out a bark to see if that would call him. But the only answer he got was the wailing of the wind across the wide salt fen. We hurried forward, all three of us, thinking hard. When we reached the front of the shack, we found the door open, swinging and creaking dismally in the wind. We looked inside. There was no one there. "Isn't Luke at home, then?" said I. "Perhaps he's out for a walk." "He is always at home," said the doctor, frowning in a peculiar sort of way. "And even if we were out for a walk, he wouldn't leave his door banging in the wind behind him. There's something queer about this. What are you doing there, Jip?" "Nothing much. Nothing worth speaking of," said Jip, examining the floor of the hut extremely carefully. "Come here, Jip," said the doctor in a stern voice. "You're hiding something from me. You see signs and you know something, or you guess it. What has happened? Tell me, where's the hermit?" "I don't know," said Jip, looking very guilty and uncomfortable. "I don't know where he is." "Well, you know something. I can tell it from the look in your eye. What is it?" But Jip didn't answer. For 10 minutes the doctor kept questioning him, but not a word would the dog say. "Well," said the doctor at last, "it's no use our standing around here in the cold. The hermit's gone, that's all. We might as well go home to luncheon." As we buttoned up our coats and started back across the marsh, Jip ran ahead, pretending he was looking for water rats. "He knows something, all right," whispered the doctor, "and I think he knows what has happened, too. It's funny, his not wanting to tell me. He's never done that before. Not in 11 years. He has always told me everything. Strange. Very strange." "Do you mean you think he knows all about the hermit, the big mystery about him, which folks hint at and all that?" "I shouldn't wonder if he did," the doctor answered slowly. I noticed something in his expression the moment we found the door open and the hut empty, and the way he sniffed the floor, too. Told him something, that floor did. He saw signs we couldn't see. I wonder why he won't tell me. I'll try him again. "Here, Jip. Jip. Where's the dog? I thought he went out in front." "So did I said. "He was there a moment ago. I saw him large as life. Jip. 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 Jip." But he was gone. We called and called. We even walked back to the hut, but Jip had disappeared. "Oh, well," I said, "most likely he has just run home ahead of us. He often does that, you know. We'll find him there when we get back to the house." But the doctor just closed his coat collar tighter against the wind and strode on, muttering, "Odd, very odd." The third chapter, Jip and the Secret. When we reached the house, the first question the doctor asked of Dab-Dab in the hall was, "Is Jip home yet?" "No," said Dab-Dab. "I haven't seen him." "Well, let me know the moment he comes in, will you, please?" said the doctor, hanging up his hat. "Certainly I will," said Dab-Dab. "Don't be long over washing your hands. The lunch is on the table." Just as we were sitting down to luncheon in the kitchen, we heard a great racket at the front door. I ran and opened it. In bounded Jip. "Doctor," he cried, "come into the library quick. I've got something to tell you." "No, Dab-Dab, the luncheon must wait." "Please hurry, Doctor. There's not a moment to be lost. Don't let any of the animals come, just you and Tommy." "No," he said when we were inside the library and the door was closed. "Turn the key in the lock and make sure there's no one listening under the windows." "It's all right," said the doctor. "Nobody can hear you here. Now what is it?" "Well, Doctor," said Jip. He was badly out of breath from running. "I know all about the hermit. I have known for years, but I couldn't tell you." "Why?" asked the doctor. "Because I'd promised not to tell anyone. It was Bob, his dog, that told me, and I swore to him that I would keep the secret." "Well, and are you going to tell me now?" "Yes," said Jip. "We've got to save him. I followed Bob's scent just now when I left you out there on the marshes, and I found him. And I said to him, 'Is it all right,' I said, 'for me to tell the doctor now? Maybe he can do something.' And Bob says to me, 'Yes,' says he, 'it's all right because—'" "Oh, for heaven's sake, go on, cried the doctor. "Tell us what the mystery is, not what you said to Bob and what Bob said to you. What has happened? Where is the hermit?" "He's in Puddleby jail," said Jip. "He's in prison." "In prison?" "Yes." "What for? What has he done?" Jip went over to the door and smelt to the bottom of it to see if anyone was listening outside. Then he came back to the doctor on tiptoe and whispered, "He killed a man." "Lord preserve us!" cried the doctor, sitting down heavily in a chair and mopping his forehead with a handkerchief. "When did he do it?" 15 years ago, in a Mexican gold mine. That's why he's been a hermit ever since. He shaved off his beard and kept away from people out there on the marshes, so he couldn't be recognized. But last week it seemed these newfangled policemen came into town, and they heard there was a strange man who kept to himself all alone in a shack on the fen, and they got suspicious. For a long time people had been hunting all over the world for the man that did the killing in the Mexican gold mine 15 years ago. So these policemen went out to the shack, and they recognized Luke by a mole on his arm. They took him to prison. "Well, well," murmured the doctor. "Who would have thought it? Luke, the philosopher, killed a man. Can hardly believe it." "It's true enough, unfortunately," said Jip. "Luke did it, but it wasn't his fault. Bob says so, and he was there and saw it all. He was scarcely more than a puppy at the time. Bob says Luke couldn't help it. He had to do it." "Where's Bob now?" asked the doctor. "Down at the prison. I wanted him to come here with me to see you, but he wouldn't leave the prison while Luke is in there. He just sits outside the door of the prison cell and won't move. He doesn't even eat the food that they give him. Won't you please come down there, doctor, and see if there's anything you can do? The trial is to be this afternoon at 2 o'clock. What time is it now?" "It's 10 minutes past 1. "Bob says he thinks that they are going to kill Luke for punishment if they can prove that he did it, or certainly keep him in prison for the rest of his life. Won't you please come? Perhaps if you spoke to the judge and told him what a good man Luke really is, they'd let him off." "Of course I'll come," said the doctor, getting up and moving to go. "But I'm very much afraid I shan't be of any real help." He turned to the door and hesitated thoughtfully. "And yet I wonder." Then he opened the door and passed out with Jip and me close at his heels. The 4th chapter, Bob. Dab-Dab was terribly upset when she found we were going away again without our luncheon, and she made us take some cold pork pies in our pockets to eat on the way. When we got to Puddleby Courthouse, it was next door to the prison, we found a great crowd gathered around the building. This was the week of the assizes, a business which happened every 3 months, when many pickpockets and other bad characters were tried by a very grand judge who came all the way from London. And anybody in Puddleby who had nothing special to do used to come to the courthouse to hear the trials. But today it was different. The crowd was not made up of just a few idle people. It was enormous. The news had run through the countryside that Luke the Hermit was to be tried for killing a man, and the great mystery which had hung over him so long was to be cleared up at last. The butcher and the baker had closed their shops and taken a holiday. All the farmers from roundabout and all the townsfolk were there with their Sunday clothes on, trying to get seats in the courthouse or gossiping outside in low whispers. The high street was so crowded you could hardly move along it. I had never seen the quiet town in such a state of excitement before, for Puddleby had not had such assizes since 1799, when Ferdinand Phipps, the rector's oldest son, had robbed a bank. If I hadn't had the doctor with me, I'm sure I would never been able to make my way through the mob packed around the courthouse door. But I just followed behind him, hanging on to his coattails, and at last we got safely into the jail. "I want to see Luke," said the doctor to a very grand person in a blue coat with brass buttons standing at the door. "Ask at the superintendent's office," said the man. "The 3rd door on the left down the corridor." "Who's that person you spoke to, doctor?" I asked as we went along the passage. "He's a policeman." "And what are policemen?" "Policemen? They're to keep people in order. They've just been invented by Sir Robert Peel. That's why they're also called peelers sometimes. It's a wonderful age we live in. They're always thinking of something new. This will be the superintendent's office, I suppose." From there, another policeman was sent with us to show us the way. Outside the door of Luke's cell, we found Bob, the bulldog, who wagged his tail sadly when he saw us. The man who was guiding us took a large bunch of keys from his pocket and opened the door. I had never been inside a real prison cell before, and I felt quite a thrill when the policeman went out and locked the door after him, leaving us shut in the dimly lighted little stone room. Before he went, he said that as soon as we had done talking with our friend, we should knock upon the door and he would come and let us out. At first, I could hardly see anything, it was so dim inside. But after a little, I made out a low bed against the wall, under a small barred window. On the bed, staring down at the floor between his feet, sat the hermit, his head resting in his hands. "Well, Luke," said the doctor in a kindly voice, "they don't give you much light in here, do they?" Very slowly, the hermit looked up from the floor. "Hello, John Dolittle. What brings you here?" "I've come to see you. I would have been here sooner, only I didn't hear about this until a few minutes ago. I went to your hut to ask if you would join me on a voyage. When I found it empty, I had no idea where you could be. Dreadfully sorry to hear about your bad luck. I've come to see if there's anything I can do." Luke shook his head. "No, I don't imagine there's anything that can be done. They've caught me at last. That's the end of it, I suppose." He got up stiffly and started walking up and down the little room. "In a way, I'm glad it's over," he said. "I never got any peace, always thinking they were after me, afraid to speak to anyone. They were bound to get me in the end. Yes, I'm glad it's over." Then the doctor talked to Luke for more than half an hour, trying to cheer him up, while I sat around wondering what I ought to say and wishing I could do something. At last the doctor said he wanted to see Bob, and we knocked upon the door and were let out by the policeman. "Bob," said the doctor to the big bulldog in the passage, "come with me onto the porch. I want to ask you something." "How is he, doctor?" asked Bob as we walked down the corridor to the courthouse porch. "Oh, Luke's all right. Very miserable, of course, but he's all right. Now tell me, Bob, you saw this business happen, didn't you? You were there when the man was killed, eh?" "I was, doctor," said Bob, "and I tell you—" "All right," the doctor interrupted. "That's all I want to know for the present. There isn't time to tell me more now. The trial's just going to begin. There are the judge and the lawyers coming up the steps. Now listen, Bob, I want you to stay with me when I go into the courtroom. And whatever I tell you to do, do it. Do you understand? Don't make any scenes. Don't bite anybody, no matter what they may say about Luke. Just behave perfectly quietly and answer any question I may ask you, truthfully. Do you understand?" "Very well. But do you think you will be able to get him off, doctor?" asked Bob. "He's a good man, doctor. He really is. There never was a better." We'll see, Bob. It's a new thing I'm going to try, and I'm not sure the judge will allow it. But, well, we'll see. It's time to go into the courtroom now. Don't forget what I told you. Remember, for heaven's sake, don't start biting anyone or you'll get us all put out and spoil everything. The 5th chapter, Mendoza. Inside the courtroom, everything was very solemn and wonderful. It was a high, big room. Raised above the floor against the wall was the judge's desk, and here the judge was already sitting, an old, handsome man in a marvelous big wig of gray hair and a gown of black. Below him was another wide, long desk at which the lawyers in white wigs sat. The whole thing reminded me of a mixture between church and a school. "Those 12 men at the side," whispered the doctor, "those in pews like a choir, they're what is called the jury. It is they who decide whether Luke is guilty, whether he did it or not." "And look," I said, "there's Luke himself in a sort of pulpit thing with the policeman on each side of him. And there's another pulpit, same kind, on the other side of the room, see? Only that one's empty." "That one is called the witness box," said the doctor. "Now, I'm going down to speak to one of those men in white wigs. I want you to wait here and keep these two seats for us. Bob will stay with you. Keep an eye on him. Better hold on to his collar. I shan't be more than a minute or so." With that, the doctor disappeared into the crowd, which filled the main part of the room. Then I saw the judge take up a funny little wooden hammer and knock on his desk with it. This, it seemed, was to make people keep quiet, for immediately everyone stopped buzzing and talking and began to listen very respectfully. Then another man in a black gown stood up and began reading from a paper in his hand. He mumbled away exactly as though he were saying his prayers and didn't want anyone to understand what language they were in. But I managed to catch a few words. Biz, 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 otherwise known as Luke the Hermit of Biz, 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 for killing his partner with Biz, 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 otherwise known as Bluebird Bill, on the night of the Biz, 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 in the Biz, biz, biz of Mexico. Therefore, Her Majesty Biz, biz, biz. At this moment, I felt someone take a hold of my arm from the back, and turning round, I found the doctor had returned with one of the men in white wigs. Stubbins, this is Mr. Percy Jenkins, said the doctor. He is Luke's lawyer. It's his business to get Luke off, if he can. Mr. Jenkins seemed to be an extremely young man with a round, smooth face like a boy. He shook hands with me and then immediately turned and went on talking with the doctor. Oh, I think it is a perfectly precious idea, he was saying. Of course the dog must be admitted as a witness, if he was the only one who saw the thing take place. I'm awfully glad you came. I wouldn't have missed this for anything. My hat! Won't it make the old court sit up? They're always frightfully dull, these assizes. But this will stir things. A bulldog witness for the defense. I do hope there are plenty of reporters present. Yes, there's one making a sketch of the prisoner. I shall become known after this, and won't Conky be pleased? My hat! He put his hand over his mouth to smother a laugh, and his eyes fairly sparkled with mischief. Who is Conky? I asked the doctor. Shh! He's speaking of the judge up there, the Honorable Eustace Beauchamp Conkley. Now, said Mr. Jenkins, bringing out a notebook, tell me a little bit more about yourself, doctor. You took your degree as a doctor in medicine at Durham, I think you said. The name of your last book was? I could not hear any more, for they talked in whispers, and fell into looking around the court again. Of course, I could not understand everything that was going on, though it was all very interesting. People kept getting up in the place the doctor called the witness box, and the lawyers at the long table asked them questions about the night of the 29th. Then the people would get down again, and somebody else would get up and be questioned. One of the lawyers, who the doctor told me afterwards was called the prosecutor, seemed to be doing his best to get the hermit into trouble by asking questions which made it look as though he had always been a very bad man. He was a nasty lawyer, this prosecutor, with a long nose. Most of the time I could hardly keep my eyes off poor Luke, who sat there between his two policemen, staring at the floor as though he weren't interested. The only time I saw him take any notice at all was when the small dark man with wicked little watery eyes got up into the witness box. I heard Bob snarl under my chair at this person who came into the courtroom, and Luke's eyes just blazed with anger and contempt. This man said his name was Mendoza, and he was the one who had guided the Mexican police to the mine after Bluebird Bill had been killed. And at every word he said, I could hear Bob down below me muttering between his teeth, "It's a lie! It's a lie! I'll chew his face! It's a lie!" And both the doctor and I had to work hard keeping the dog under the seat. Then I noticed that our Mr. Jenkins had disappeared from the doctor's side. But presently I saw him stand up at the long table to speak to the judge. "Your Honor," he said, "I wish to introduce a new witness for the defense, Dr. John Dolittle, the naturalist. Would you please step up in the witness stand, Doctor?" There was a buzz of excitement as the doctor made his way across the crowded room, and I noticed the nasty lawyer with the long nose lean down and whisper something to a friend, smiling in an ugly way which made me want to pinch him. Then Mr. Jenkins asked the doctor a whole lot of questions about himself and made him answer in a loud voice so the whole court could hear. He finished up by saying, "And are you prepared to swear, Dr. Dolittle, that you understand the language of dogs and can make them understand you? Is that so?" "Yes," said the doctor, "that is so." "And what, might I ask," put the judge in a very quiet, dignified voice, "has all this to do with the killing of Bluebeard Bill?" "This, Your Honor," said Mr. Jenkins, talking in a very grand manner as though he were on the stage in a theater. "There is in this courtroom at the present moment a bulldog, who was the only living thing that saw the man killed. With the court's permission, I propose to put that dog in the witness stand and have him questioned before you by the eminent scientist, Dr. John Dolittle." The 6th chapter, The Judge's Dog. At first there was a dead silence in the court. Then everybody began whispering or giggling at the same time, till the whole room sounded like a great hive of bees. Many people seemed to be shocked. Most of them were amused, and a few were angry. Presently up sprang the nasty lawyer with the long nose. "I protest, Your Honor," he cried, waving his arms wildly to the judge. "I object. The dignity of the court is in peril. I protest." "I am the one to take care of the dignity of this court," said the judge. Then Mr. Jenkins got up again. If it hadn't been such a serious matter, it was almost like a Punch and Judy show. Somebody was always popping down and somebody else popping up. "If there is any doubt on the score of our being able to do as we say, Your Honor will have no objection, I trust, to the doctor giving the court a demonstration of his powers, of showing that he can actually understand the speech of animals?" I thought I saw a twinkle of amusement come into the old judge's eyes as he sat considering a moment before he answered. "No," he said at last, "I don't think so." Then he turned to the doctor. "Are you quite sure you can do this?" he asked. "Quite, Your Honor," said the doctor. "Quite sure." "Very well, then," said the judge. "If you can satisfy us that you are really able to understand canine testimony, the dog shall be admitted as a witness. I do not see, in that case, how I could object to this being heard. But I warn you that if you are trying to make a laughingstock of this court, it will go hard with you." "I protest! I protest!" yelled the long-nosed prosecutor. "This is a scandal, an outrage to the bar." "Sit down," said the judge in a very stern voice. "What animal does Your Honor wish me to talk with?" asked the doctor. "I would like you to talk to my own dog," said the judge. "He is outside in the cloakroom. I will have him brought in, and we shall see what you can do." Then someone went out and fetched the judge's dog, a lovely great Russian wolfhound with slender legs and a shaggy coat. He was a proud and beautiful creature. "Now, doctor," said the judge, "did you ever see this dog before? Remember, you are on the witness stand and under oath." "No, Your Honor, I never saw him before." "Very well, then. Will you please ask him to tell you what I had for supper last night? He was with me and watched me while I ate." Then the doctor and the dog started talking to one another in signs and sounds, and they kept at it for quite a long time. And the doctor began to giggle and get so interested that he seemed to forget all about the court and the judge and everything else. "What a time he takes," I heard a fat woman in front of me whispering. "He's only pretending. Of course he can't do it. Who ever heard of talking to a dog? He must think we're children." "Haven't you finished yet?" the judge asked the doctor. "It shouldn't take long just to ask what I had for supper." "Oh, no, Your Honor," said the doctor. "The dog told me that long ago, but then he went on to tell me what you did after supper." "Never mind that," said the judge. "Tell me what answer he gave you to my question." "He says you had a mutton chop, 2 baked potatoes, a pickled walnut, and a glass of ale." The Honorable Eustace Beauchamp Conkley went white to the lips. "Sounds like witchcraft," he muttered. "I never dreamed." "And after your supper," the doctor went on, "he says you went to see a prize fight and then sat up playing cards for money till 12 o'clock and came home singing, 'We won't get—'" "That will do," the judge interrupted. "I am satisfied you can do as you say. The prisoner's dog shall be admitted as a witness." "I protest! I object!" screamed the prosecutor. "Your Honor, this is—" "Sit down," roared the judge. "I say the dog shall be heard. That ends the matter. Put the witness on the stand." And then, for the first time in the solemn history of England, a dog was put on the witness stand of Her Majesty's Court of Assizes. And it was I, Tommy Stubbins, when the doctor made a sign to me across the room, who proudly led Bob up the aisle, through the astonished crowd, past the frowning, spluttering, long-nosed prosecutor, and made him comfortable on a high chair in the witness box, from where the old bulldog sat scowling over the rail upon the amazed and gaping jury. The 7th chapter, The End of the Mystery. The trial went swiftly forward after that. Mr. Jenkins told the doctor to ask Bob what he saw on the night of the 29th, and when Bob had told what he knew and the doctor had turned it into English for the judge and the jury, this was what he had to say. On the night of the 29th of November, 1824, I was with my master, Luke Fitzjohn, otherwise known as Luke the Hermit, and his two partners, Manuel Mendoza and William Boggs, otherwise known as Bluebeard Bill, on their gold mine in Mexico. For a long time these three men had been hunting for gold, and they had dug a deep hole in the ground. On the morning of the 29th, gold was discovered, lots of it, at the bottom of this hole. And all three, my master and his two partners, were very happy about it because now they would be rich. But Manuel Mendoza asked Bluebird Bill to go for a walk with him. These two men I had always suspected of being bad. So when I noticed that they had left my master behind, I followed them secretly to see what they were up to. And in a deep cave in the mountains, I heard them arrange together to kill Luke the Hermit so that they should get all the gold and he have none. At this point, the judge asked, "Where is the witness Mendoza? Constable, see he does not leave the court." But the wicked little man with the watery eyes had already sneaked out when no one was looking, and he was never seen in Puddleby again. Then, Bob's statement went on, I went to my master and tried very hard to make him understand that his partners were dangerous men, but it was no use. He did not understand dog language. So I did the next best thing. I never let him out of my sight, but stayed with him every moment of the day and night. Now, the hole they had made was so deep to get down and up that you had to go in a big bucket tied on the end of a rope, and the three men used to haul one another up and let the other down the mine in this way. That's how the gold was brought up, too, in the bucket. Well, about 7 o'clock in the evening, my master was standing on top of the mine, hauling up Bluebeard Bill, who was in the bucket. Just as he had got Bill halfway up, I saw Mendoza come out of the hut where we all lived. Mendoza thought that Bill was away buying groceries, but he wasn't. He was in the bucket. And when Mendoza saw Luke hauling and straining on the rope, he thought he was pulling up a bucket full of gold. So he drew a pistol from his pocket and came sneaking up behind Luke to shoot him. I barked and barked to warn my master of the danger he was in, but he was so busy hauling up Bill, who was a heavy, fat man, that he took no notice of me. I saw that if I didn't do something quick, he would surely be shot. So I did a thing I've never done before. Suddenly and savagely, I bit my master in the leg from behind. Luke was so hurt and startled that he did just what I wanted him to do. He let go of the rope with both hands at once and turned around. And then, crash! Down went Bill in his bucket to the bottom of the mine, and he was killed. While my master was busy scolding me, Mendoza put his pistol in his pocket, came up with a smile on his face, and looked down the mine. "Why, good gracious," he said to Luke, "you've killed Bluebeard Bill. I must go and tell the police," hoping, you see, to get the whole mine to himself when Luke should be put in prison. Then he jumped on his horse and galloped away. And soon my master grew afraid, for he saw that if Mendoza only told enough lies to the police, it would look as though he had killed Bill on purpose. So while Mendoza was gone, he and I stole away together secretly and came to England. Here he shaved off his beard and became a hermit, and ever since, for 15 years, we've remained in hiding. This is all I have to say, and I swear it is the truth, every word. When the doctor finished reading Bob's long speech, the excitement among the 12 men of the jury was positively terrific. One, a very old man with white hair, began to weep in a loud voice at the thought of poor Luke hiding on the fen for 15 years for something he couldn't help. And all the others set to whispering and nodding their heads to one another. In the middle of all of this, up got that horrible prosecutor again, waving his arms more wildly than ever. "Your Honor," he cried, "I must object to this evidence as biased. Of course the dog would not tell the truth against his own master. I object. I protest." "Very well," said the judge. "You are at liberty to cross-examine. It is your duty as prosecutor to prove his evidence untrue. There's the dog. Question him, if you do not believe what he says." I thought the long-nosed lawyer would have a fit. He looked first at the dog, then at the doctor, then at the judge, then back at the dog scowling from the witness box. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came. He waved his arms some more. His face got redder and redder. At last, clutching his forehead, he sank weakly into his seat and had to be helped out of the courtroom by two friends. He was half carried through the door and was still feebly murmuring, "I protest. I object. I protest." And that is the end of the chapter and the end of the episode. Thank you for joining me.